feels like forever since we've been here.
I know.
World, what's up?
So much is happening.
Before we even get started, I gotta give so much love to Urilla.
Word.
Exploring Urilla on IG.
Yes.
Cali York Photography, she goes by different names. Urilla came out to the block party on Saturday. And if you follow us on IG, I'm sure at this moment you've seen the reels from an amazing block party that we put on Saturday, featuring Smith & Wesson on my stoop. But Urilla been hitting the reels up, Kai, like Kendrick Lamar. Like, she keeps throwing fire joints back to back. Ever since yesterday, she's been putting together some amazing content.
Her clip is fully loaded.
Her clip is
She's
fully
not
loaded,
playing
dude.
any games.
But I love it, and I love her because she sees us the way that we should be seen.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, she sees us in such a godly way that it's just beautiful. Like, all of them shits I watch multiple times.
Yeah, it's pure love. I love it.
It was lit this weekend, right?
Yeah.
We had a lit
It was
weekend.
Crazy.
We did.
Like, I feel like I celebrated your 50th or something.
Oh, right. It wasn't even my 50th. I still got another year to go.
Yeah.
But damn it, we acted like it.
Yeah.
If you was with us at all this weekend, comment on the weekend while we started the conversation. We want to know how you guys enjoyed the weekend. Jay, what's up with you, dog? You enjoyed it?
Yeah, I had a good time, man. I got there. You know, what's funny is, right, so when I got there, it was just, it was a little overwhelming, right?
What time did you get there? Because I made sure I got there early.
You got there
I
early
could
enough
get
so that
my
it wasn't,
spot
right.
I got there probably around 5. Right?
Yeah,
And
about
so,
5?
You was getting
Yeah.
the heat of it.
So I decided to stand right by your stoop to just get away from everybody.
Right.
So I was just literally I was just standing there. And then I said, you know what? Let me take out my camera. And at that point, I saw Ted, so I shot Ted real quick. And then everyone came off the stoop, and I didn't even realize you were behind me until you got on the mic. So I'm like, okay. And then I didn't realize you were about to announce Smith & Wesson until you did.
Right.
And now they're right there. I'm like, wait a minute, okay.
You just was in the right place at the right time.
Exactly. So I got some excellent footage of Smith & Wesson performing, and that was dope. Like that whole set was dope. And then just going through, being able to shoot, just taking and having a vantage point, being able to take it, shooting things throughout. So now it was a good time for real. Like I had a great time, and I could see different people enjoying themselves. Like it was intimate moments where like no one cared who was around them. And then there was like, we started, Ted, Goldfinger, like turned it up, and you had the whole set going. So it was dope.
Yeah, it was live.
It was all the way live, and I mean, if I could just jump in, I think it was like very soulful.
It was
and
beautiful.
it felt like really like this was like the welcoming of the summer, like the opening, like BAM is normally where we see people for the first time. People come out, but you know what? I think a whole nother hip hop crew comes out for this, and it was dope. And the weather was perfect. Everyone was looking fly, and I mean, Goldfinger, the Block Association, big them up.
Yeah,
they killed it. And Urilla, as you were saying, piggybacking what you were saying, Marlon, Urilla is just making magic.
Yo, what she's doing is amazing with those
Absolutely.
reels. Like to capture that shit in half speed. Like that's the shit that people don't understand. She's capturing some of the shit at half speed, right?
Right.
And then so when she's playing it, it's like really just elegant.
Absolutely.
But this is where, and I want to introduce this brother because it's important that I'm mentioning this to you guys, and I'm gonna tell you why. Jason the same way. Jason captured amazing shots, right? You sent me some shit, amazing shots, right? What I'm telling y'all is that the photographers in our community matter. The photographers are the eyes of our culture. When I miss out on something and I go to IG and I see a picture of it and it makes me feel FOMO, like, damn, I missed out on that beauty.
Right.
I feel that way because a photographer took the picture. Now with phones, everybody thinks they a photographer, right?
For real.
Kai thinks she's a photographer.
Oh,
I think I'm a photographer. We all think we photographers.
But wait, do you even have a camera?
I got a phone. I got an iPhone, right?
I have a camera.
She has a camera. She got a camera. She got a camera. She a photographer. But what I'm saying is this art of photography is so underrated. For me, one of the things that I did when I realized I really wanted to be front facing in community and do community type events is any photographers, I become their homeboys. I become their friends. We had some amazing photographers. Nika Willis, we had you, we had Jay, we had Urilla. We had awesome photographers at the event, right? So when you capture some shit,
right.
Barnabas, I
was
forgot,
there,
shout to
right.
Barnabas.
Barnabas
Barnabas was there, right? So when these photographers capture these images of what is a basic block party and they put it into the ether,
Right.
it becomes art.
And history.
It becomes history. It becomes culture. And so it's really funny how the universe works, that we should have the brother to my left as our first guest, coming off of vacation, coming off of a weekend where we had an amazing block party that was captured by amazing photographers and is still running on your IG feed as we speak. So we're going to get into it right now. I want to introduce the summit, present to others, my brother Russell Frederick.
Big up.
Stacey said
Shout out to Stacey. Happy birthday, Stacey.
What's up,
Is
Stacey?
today Stacey's
Her birthday was June 9th. Her birthday was June 9th.
Yeah, birthday was over the weekend.
Her birthday was Sunday. Mine's is Saturday. Hers is Sunday.
Sweet.
How you doing, brother?
Yo, life is good. Can't
God is
complain.
great, ain't he?
Absolutely. So happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation. Stacey had mentioned to me about the hip hop class. I think you interviewed her a little
I
while
did
ago.
indeed.
And and that was all love. But as you were speaking about, I think photographers and how the art form has become devalued and even underrated. I should say underappreciated.
Yes.
Not underrated. Underappreciated.
Yes.
Simply because I think of its access and really how the phones have really taken a very complicated skill set and simplified it to make things easy and replacing the point and shoot. But even with the iPhones, I will say this to you, there is a lot of value in it. I can tell you, I know photographers who made the cover of Time magazine
With iPhones.
with iPhones
Wow.
decades ago.
Wow.
A decade ago. And how the phone has really been a way, I think, particularly internationally, for countries where photography and journalism, photojournalism and photos particularly, are seen as the enemy. But because a phone can be so discreet, as well as too, I think people aren't necessarily intimidated or threatened when they see a phone because they're going to think, okay,
Versus a photographer.
versus a real camera.
Right. Versus a camera.
A real camera. A person sees you with a real camera, and you know what, and they may just completely just adjust and even freeze or question really what you're doing.
Right.
The iPhone has, I shouldn't just say, the camera phones have really, I would just say, made it a lot more conspicuous, and as well as the feature of video. Video and photos, we know there are a lot of people whose lives have been saved. You know what? People have been held accountable
Because of video.
because of this. Exactly. George
Right.
Floyd, we can go on
Right.
and on.
Right. We just had a situation this weekend at Brooklyn Pride. There was a dude that is actually like a big wig at some company. What happened?
Just keep going.
There was a big wig at some company that punched a female at Brooklyn Pride this weekend, and they caught him on film doing it. And they were able to kind of ascertain where he works and
That's right.
and put him on blast because of a camera phone. So yeah, there's a thing to it. You want me to pull out? Look,
No. They
we
want.
good?
Yeah, we're good.
Because I could put it right on here.
No. I think the light wasn't on. So.
Oh, it wasn't on. Oh. So yeah, I feel you. There is a thing, right, where the phone is a necessity now with regards to capturing images, and it does. But to me, there's always going to be space for the traditional. And as long as we create space for the traditional, they'll always feed us in the way that it needs to be fed. Processed food sucks.
100%.
Home cooked meals is what's up. And so I take tons of photos on my iPhone.
Right.
My kids take photos. I take photos. Wherever I'm at, I'm shooting shit. I'm not a photographer, though.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Indeed.
I'm not a photographer, right?
Right.
And so I want to get into your story. I want to start off because you and I, for transparency, you and I just met recently. We was at Rob Gore's book signing.
Right.
People have been telling us, yo, you got to meet this brother. You got to meet this brother. We finally met.
Right.
Then we sat in the office, had a great conversation. We got something going on that we're going to give y'all in a second. But I want to learn about you. I want to take this opportunity while we're here to kind of get to know you. So where were you born? Where you from?
Born over here in Brooklyn.
Where in Brooklyn? Where you?
Was born at Kings County.
At Kings County. Okay.
Childhood was in Bushwick. And adulthood had a little brief time out in Queens.
Where at in Bushwick?
Bushwick over around Chauncey, Chauncey Street. So right on the border of like East New York and Bushwick, and as well as like Bed-Stuy.
Right.
So right over like by this Chauncey Street on the J train. That's where I grew up at. So early childhood was over there, and moved to Bed-Stuy when I was 19. First apartment on Halsey in Bedford, and pretty much been in the Stuy for 20 plus years. Then went back to Bushwick to take care of my grandfather because he was getting sick and he was aging. Spent about 10 years there, back in the Stuy. So
where'd you go to high school?
High school went out in Far Rockaway in Beach Channel.
Oh, you went to Beach Channel?
Beach Channel in Far Rockaway. Had a brief time in Queens.
That was a trek.
Listen, so my mom in the early 80s, I think she wanted to be near the beach, but did not think about winter times in Far Rock.
Right. 'Cause that's the thing, right?
And that was a whole nother world. So went to Beach Channel High School out there, and then was in Springfield Gardens briefly for maybe like 2-3 years, and then came back to Brooklyn. So my high school years between about 14 to 18 were out there in Queens, and then we've been in BK ever since.
What type of child were you?
Oh man, I would say I would be. I don't even know how to respond to that, because I think a kid who grew up son of immigrants, people from Panama.
Your family's from Panama.
Families from Panama.
Shout to Panama.
Indeed.
Jay's family's from Panama. Dan's family's from Panama. Shout to Panama.
Yep. So people from Panama. So growing up, first male of my generation. Growing up on a block, very working class. My mom and my family came to this country in 1965. Shortly after they got here, Malcolm X was killed. And grew up learning about Black pride. Grew up with strong family values. And in terms of a kid, my childhood, grew up without my father, so was blessed that the men on my block where I grew up at, they kept me close. My grandfather, my uncle, my mother's twin brother, those were the men who kind of showed me the way, and even some of the OGs in the neighborhood. And I could say my childhood, I was very sick. A big part of it because I was born with asthma. And
I had asthma too.
Indeed. And it was like asthma controlled a lot of my life. And put a lot of fear in my mother's and my grandmother's life. They didn't think I was gonna make it to 18. But I could say through athletics and also to the spirit of resilience that I think is just in the DNA of everybody who comes from Brooklyn. You come from where we come from, you just are built differently. You built to go the distance. And with that, with having adversity from a young age, just instilled a drive in me. Like even having asthma, I didn't let it control me. I was hospitalized a lot. I lived in an emergency room all the time. But
A lot of people don't realize what you're saying. Like, I grew up with asthma, so as a kid, like my chest, I would call it my chest getting tight.
Yep.
And I would start wheezing, and then I would have to go to the hospital and take like the nebulizer.
You had to get the injections
yeah,
of
injections,
adrenaline, right?
Yeah,
So it was
yeah.
in the summertime, like the
Yeah,
allergies.
Kai deal with
Exactly.
that shit. Her husband and her daughter,
There you
right?
go. The allergies, man.
Yeah.
Like in the summer and the spring,
Right,
the
pollen.
change of season, the pollen.
Always used to hurt
Exactly.
me. I go out to play, I come back home, I be
There you
wheezing.
go.
Right.
Same thing. So I had, like a 2-page list of allergies.
Mm-hmm.
So childhood was pretty tough, and then having also too eczema, and growing up in that time, being dark skinned, having eczema.
Oh, they was heating on you.
And let me say this: I hated them Al B. Shore Negroes.
Right. Light skinned niggas.
I hated all of them, all of them, and I hated the ladies who liked them too.
Right.
So with that, but in coming into, and I went to a private school.
What
So,
private school you went?
whichever religious school I think had a sale is what my mom sent me to.
You said whichever one had a sale.
Because I went to Catholic, I went to Episcopal, I went to Lutheran, I went to Baptist, I went to another one. So here it was. I went to like all of these private schools in my early childhood, and my mom wanted me, I think, to get this education. More, I think, she felt that, okay, in private school I can get a better education than public schools. And also, too, she really wanted me to get the word of God regularly. That was really
But here's the thing. School is also about socialization.
true. That
It's about education, but it's about socialization. You're moving around from school to school. What type of child did that make you? Like, you're always kind of around new people.
Right. So what that made me was very savvy. It made me very adaptable, as well as too, it really was a setting for me to really, it was an environment really for me to, I think, have to develop and grow up quicker, as well as to know that anywhere I go, I can make it, I can succeed, and that to fear nothing. That was all a big part of it, and that life is full of adjustments. In your principles, your value system, your beliefs, as well as too, when you know you're walking with God, you can't go wrong. You're gonna walk good, and you're gonna be surrounded by angels. And I think, with along my journey in my childhood, I can't even to this day, I can't even quantify how many angels and shepherds have come along the way. But from the early days, I'm thinking about, I was in 3rd grade, my mother bought me a sheepskin. So here it is, I'm in 3rd grade.
Oh, you 8 years old with a sheepskin?
Sheepskin. Well, and wallabies.
Oh, God, 8 years
wallabies.
old. Oh,
and then
my
a
God.
uniform.
Right.
Would go into school, and the OG saw me. They were like, where you going with that coat?
Right.
And I was like, Mom bought me this coat. So I had no idea that I was flossing. Right? My mother was like, I want you to be warm.
Lord have mercy.
Because
She
for
put
those
out
of you
there.
who don't know, winters in the 70s who were new to New York were brutal.
Yeah, winters are
Brutal.
beautiful.
Brutal. So here it is, and I had to walk to school.
Yeah.
And the OGs taught me how to handle myself. They taught me how to protect myself. You know what? They gave me some tools to protect myself because they knew I would be targeted.
Actual tools?
Actual tools.
Right,
So
you need an
first-
actual tool for that sheepskin.
Box cutter.
Right, you need
A
that.
007.
Right, you
Nice
need that for the
switchblade.
sheepskin.
So here it is. I'm 9 years old, and they taught me how to use it, to walk with it, not to bring it inside the house.
Right.
And also too, just to protect myself. So all of that, and thankfully, you know what? I didn't have to really hurt nobody, but there was times where, you know what, I did have to protect myself.
Right. Kids got it different now. I got a nephew. He left his Montclair jacket Shit is $800. He left it at a basketball game. I went back and got it for him. Like, I drove him to get it. He got it.
Right.
People don't understand that back in the day, like, classism was such that if you had something like a sheepskin or expensive coat, you had to defend that shit every day of your life.
Absolutely.
Right? But also we come from a generation where we were taking care of ourselves.
Absolutely.
Because our parents were working.
Right.
So we would come home and we would have to take out chicken to thaw it out for dinner.
Yep.
And we would have to get our homework done and all that before Mom Dukes came home.
Absolutely.
And any issues that we had in the street, any conflicts or tension, we had to deal with that shit.
Right.
And like, honestly, my mother and father didn't want to hear that shit. They don't want to hear you got issues with somebody or you had to fight something. They don't want to hear that shit.
Right, we want to see that report card.
Right, we want to see that report card. What is you doing in class?
Exactly.
Right? So we come from an era where we had to just figure it out at a young age. And it sounds like you were figuring it out.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think not only that, I think piggybacking what you're saying is we had to figure it out, but also too, I think growing up in struggle, there are certain skill sets as well as pedigree that you develop when you come from struggle.
Correct.
And there are intangible skills that you develop. There is also, I would say, a will, a fearlessness, a drive, courage, determination, and even the desire to be great. When I look at how, you know what, and even to this day, like the guys who I grew up with some Puerto Ricans, some Jamaicans, some Trinidadians, some Haitians, some Brooklynites, and on that block, everyone pretty much, and this was like a working class block, we all kind of had like very similar value systems. As you were saying, like our belief system was, and all of our parents and families kind of shared like the same thing. Like, yo, we came to this country for y'all to succeed, and this place, Bushwick, where, let me say this, the Bushwick where I grew up, nobody wanted to go over there. All right.
Right.
No one wanted to go to Bushwick. You was not getting on the J train even in the daytime. Okay?
My cousin lived on Hancock between Irvin and Knickerbocker.
Right.
I know Bushwick. You right.
So with that, and at the same time, this toughness, there was also too this love of community and love, I think, towards each other. So growing up with that, I really saw how a community can really take care of us, and how, you know what, when I think about playing football, playing stickball on my block, when any of us saw someone's mother, grandmother coming down the block, time out. Go help grandma with them bags. You know what? You see someone, you know what, struggling or needing an assistance. We always, and even the brothers who were, you know what, who may have been hustling, they may have been playing dice, you know what they was drinking, they would stop, pick up their dice, put the beer behind their back. You know what? Greetings, Miss Frederick. It's good to see you. How are things? You need anything?
Yeah.
So it was always love.
There was
we all
definitely
did that.
connectivity that existed in the community. And
Big
absolutely.
time. Big time.
Let me ask you, what you wanted to be when you grew up, when you was that age? What was your aspirations at that age?
You know something? At that age, I didn't really have a clear identity of what I wanted to be. You know what? I think I was really trying to figure out, not having a father. You know what? I definitely mirrored my grandfather a lot. And I just remember, you know what, there's some moments that just come to me, and I'm thinking of a few things. I'm thinking of being the only kid on the block who didn't have his father in his life. And
That's wild in and of itself. You were
The
the
only
only kid
one
on the block that didn't
Didn't
have
have
his
his father. Didn't have his father, right? And
Can I ask you, where'd he go?
he was never. I think you know what. My father was just a dirtbag. My mom was young. She was, I think, 17.
Are you the only child?
No. I have a younger brother. He's 16 years younger than me.
Oh, okay, so yeah, you were the only
I was the
child.
only child
Yeah,
then.
you were the only child.
Only
right.
child then. But yeah, he was, you know what, just trash. And I think he was 12 years older than my mother. And
She was 17, he was
Yep.
29.
Yep. And I don't think he was fully honest about who he was.
Right.
His age, he was, I think, married, had some kids already, and I come to find out I'm the last of his children. I got like 7 brothers and sisters.
You met him?
I didn't meet my father until I was 26.
You met him though.
Yeah, I
He
met
was
him at 26.
Uh-huh.
And
Did you reconcile with him?
we've made peace, and there is a lot of, I don't know, how do I say this? Is it irony or serendipity? Come to find out, my father was a photographer for the Muhammad Speaks paper.
Oh shit.
No lie. No lie. Father was a photographer for the Muhammad
God is
Speaks
funny.
paper, and I couldn't believe that. I found that out when I was actually 30. And I met him for the first time at 26, and it wasn't good. And he came around really because he wanted some child support that was $25 a week to stop being taken out of his check. And when he first came around, my grandmother, like, just very Christian woman, but told him firmly, you know where to go.
Right.
Exactly. You know, and so he knew where to find me. And but circling back to, you know what, how I think the community played a role in my life. I'm thinking back to my childhood. I remember being on my block, and all of my friends, they all had like gloves and bats, and I was the only kid who didn't have one. I'm getting fucking emotional, man. I remember one of my boys' pops, Derek and Dennis Del Valle, Mr. Del Valle, bought me a fucking glove. I still got that shit to this day. Because I said to myself, yo, I'm going to have me a son. He going to get this shit. And you know what? Seeing that, I think the community, I've been loved by the community.
Right.
I've been protected by the community.
Right.
And I think these early experiences in my childhood, I see, and even when everyone said our places were the worst on earth, you know what? Not for me, not for us. Like, hey, I grew up with love.
Right.
I grew up,
in a community
you
of
know
love.
what, with purpose.
Right.
And I think some things, my mom, and you know, my grandparents, certain things like entrepreneurship, that was not possible. That was not something that was attainable, and they were really, there wasn't much evidence of it for success. And you know, was just instilled to, you know what, go to college. And coming back to your question, in high school, around 12, before high school, I really started getting involved with art and doing some graffiti, started sketching. And this is when my mom told me, like, art is a hobby and not a career. And that kind of messed me up because I was really loving graffiti, and this was really my first creative expression. And
But you understand she was speaking from her limited knowledge.
absolutely.
You
So
gotta give
with
her
that,
grace.
you know what? But that was the spark for the artist. That right there.
When she told you it was a hobby, you was like, nah, I'm gonna show you.
the first thing, it was that, and it was like, you know, I didn't, let's say, flagrantly rebel against her, but the rebel was born.
Right.
And because drawing and doing graffiti it was something not just therapeutic, it was fun. And I enjoyed just, exploring my imagination.
What was your graffiti tag name?
I used to write Zephyr.
Zephyr.
Yep. And then I wrote Zephyr first. And then I came to find out there was a white guy in the Bronx who was writing Zephyr. And here it is, funny story. Word got out, what someone else was writing Zephyr. And had to meet. And there was like a little battle, and we met up. I can't remember the name of this train stop, but there was this train stop, I think up in the Bronx, where a lot of graffiti artists met and they exchanged black books and even kind of like battled like on paper. And it's wild on how it happened, but I remember, me and one of my boys who used to assist me when I would go bombing trains, we went up there, and here it is, I have my black book, and I'm a kid, and then this grown man comes out, and he's like, he's like, well, come on, son. So here it is. It was kind of cute, and I
People
was
don't understand. I don't want you to just skip over this. People don't understand the culture of graffiti. You telling me you took your black book with all your sketches up to the Bronx to go battle somebody with their black book.
With their black book, exactly for the name.
Right.
And here it was. You know what? He saw I was a kid, but I was
he's a grown man.
He's a grown man. This guy's like in his 30s or 20s.
He's bombing trains.
He's bombing trains. And here it is.
He gotta let you have that name.
But I was like, I want to compete. Right. So I was, the young buck,
right?
Confident.
No, I'm going for mine.
I'm going for mine. I'm from Brooklyn, and even though I was very young in the game, I wanted to prove myself. And here it is. I did the best I could, and then you know what he what he did. He was doing his thing, and then when we showed our pieces, it was like a committee. They were like, it wasn't even a contest, but it was respect.
Right.
It was a respect.
What you mean it wasn't a contest? Like you just dominated his shit?
He dominated. He blew me away.
He was a grown man.
He was a grown man doing this.
So
he also had tools and skills. He was doing it much longer than me.
Right.
And with
he had the experience.
He had the experience, and with that, you know what? I took the L and I just started writing Russ. And I started writing Russ 1, and that was my next tag name.
You took your name.
So you know what? But to this day, the people know me.
Somebody holler at Zephyr. You want that name back, nigga? You about 70 years old now.
A Style Quest called it the Bench. Was that a place?
Yes, the bench. Okay. Yup.
Yo, Style Quest be coming through. That nigga though. Yeah, exactly. We might need him on the show. He be coming through.
It was the bench. It was the bench. And so here it is. So that sparked my creativity. And then from there, I said, the first career choice I wanted to do was architecture. I found architecture to be fascinating. And went through high school, did not do well academically. Had a lot of problems at home. And with that, graduated barely with a C average, went to New York Technical, New York City Tech, started pursuing architecture, and then here it was, getting into that, I started to see this was really going to be a marathon before I could really become successful. And then really digging deeper into it, first 2 years, I just found it too tedious. And I was like, this ain't for me. And I wasn't sure.
I want to talk about that real quick, and because Kai was doing the architecture thing. For me, I'm gonna tell you what I didn't realize. So I went to Brooklyn Tech. I was a TLA major because it was the easiest of the majors, right? And I'm not trying to draw all day and do shit like that. But what I didn't realize was how intricate design was. How architecture and design, how complex and layered those crafts were.
That's why I dropped out of architecture.
I didn't realize that shit.
Exactly.
The detail.
I didn't realize that shit until I was an adult.
Tedious.
It's so tedious. And then, not just tedious, though, you have to be meticulous.
Yes.
And,
Yeah,
and
I
back
didn't
then, this was
realize
no
that.
computer. You had the pencil, you had the drafting paper, and let me tell you, a difference with getting a C is if the thickness of the line changes.
Yeah,
If
bro.
one line's a little bit thicker in your sketches,
Yeah, bro.
all
I'm
right,
so
that's
glad
a
I
C
didn't take that
automatically.
major.
Because the building's gonna go down.
Yeah,
There you go.
right.
There
I'm
you
so
go.
glad I didn't take that major. I would have absolutely dropped out of Brooklyn Tech if I took architecture. I'm so glad I
So,
took TLA.
there you go.
But
So-
yeah, it's a very intricate thing.
Very.
So you had your fill of it. Then what?
Then was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. My mother was a nurse, emergency room nurse, and first before I did that, I was a bike messenger for a little bit
Facts.
for about maybe.
I was a messenger for a minute, not a bike messenger. I was a messenger. for a
right.
minute.
Did that.
For like 2 weeks. I was
That's exactly
like
how long
2
I
good
did.
weeks.
I did it on
I'm not
bike
gonna
for 2
lie
weeks,
like I did it
and then
for a
I
long
did it
time.
like on foot, and I was like,
I am
this ain't.
doing this. Yeah, I'm doing
I remember
this.
it was a rainy day, and they
Right.
wanted some big box. I'm like, oh, so we good? We gotta be getting in the van, and we gonna be driving. They were like, nah, you still gotta. I'm like,
Yeah.
and they were like, Russell, when you come back to the office, this is gonna be your last day.
Yeah.
And that was
no,
it.
No, I was good.
But then I got into my mother got me a job in the emergency room as a clerk, and I got introduced to the human body for the first time. Had no interest in healthcare at all, and then first night on the job, this was at Mary Immaculate Hospital in Queens. Young man comes in, pretty much almost decapitated.
Shit.
Uh,
I didn't think he was gonna say that. I didn't think he was gonna
his head was only holding on
by his spine.
No, by his spine and the skin.
Oh.
And this was my first night on the job, and I couldn't believe my eyes, what I saw. And then seeing how many people were really trying to save this man's life.
Right.
And I will never, my first day, I remember the blood all on my sneakers, and I was like, this is horrible. This is like crack era. And then the other terrible part of it was his ID was stolen.
So you couldn't even know who he was.
We couldn't contact nobody.
Couldn't even contact his family.
Couldn't contact nobody.
Shit.
And I just remember like 15, 20 people trying to save this man's life. And that sparked my humanity to wanting to serve and maybe care for people and just taking even interest in the human body. And from there, I went on to work at Beth Israel Medical Center. And while I was there, I then got into nursing school. And this was a whole another involvement because growing up, West Indian family, very strong Latino roots, with a lot of conservative values. And growing up during that time, you know what was very much, I would say, not really accepting of the LGBTQ community. And working at Beth Israel, it was during the height of the AIDS epidemic. Completely changed my world and my life. I was working on the AIDS unit, and it was, how do I say it? It felt more like a hospice unit. And it was life-changing for me because someone who had hatred, I was now, you know what, completely a changed man in seeing the humanity in these people. Because I saw all kinds of people. I'll never forget, we had a man who was hospitalized more than 6 months. Not one phone call, not one visitor.
No one came to see him.
No one. had no next of kin to call. I remember a couple. The hospital changed the rules and they put this couple in a room together because they both were terminally ill. And
Gay couple.
no, a straight couple.
Straight couple.
A straight couple.
Right.
Straight couple. They changed the rules and let them occupy a room together because it was going to be their
And they
final.
died together.
They
in that
died.
room.
Yep. That, and then just seeing, you know what, regular people, and you know what, in the families, and just seeing how this was ravaging through like the Black and the Hispanic community, and also too, it wasn't just a gay community. That was the other thing which I saw. So this whole perception that this sickness was just, you know what,
A gay disease.
a gay disease,
Right.
completely, you know what, disintegrated. And I'm seeing in real time people who couldn't even go to the bathroom, people who couldn't even lift a fork to eat. And then in seeing all of this, it made me want to become a nurse. But while I was there working at the hospital, the politics of healthcare is what I just absolutely I despised it. And how management, staff was, nurses, never had enough nurses, never had enough staff. I remember, I think we had 36 beds, 3 nurses for 36 patients, and 2 nurses aides. When the daytime, and I worked the evenings, and the daytime was like 5 nurses. And I just also saw how a lot of the nurses were not happy. They were miserable. And even though they were making great money, there was still not, you know what, peace. It wasn't happy. And the politics in management had their beliefs and their system that they wanted to apply. And what the staff needed was not always being received. They didn't always have what they needed to really serve the patients and their families. And then in going through, seeing all of this death, I picked up a camera.
That's what I was going to ask you.
I picked up a camera in 1995 for the first time. There were some people at my church that I grew up at. They were starting up this magazine. Big up to Marcus Williams. He was a person who reached out to me, him, and his other brother, you know what, Marcus was at Indigo. And the magazine was Indigo back in the 90s. And asked me about doing some fashion styling because I always had some style. And this was the first time I had to pick up a camera, and I just borrowed my mother's camera, asked my mother for a camera. She had a Canon 81. And I just started taking pictures to learn, but it really became therapy for me. And then it was so therapeutic and just something that was effortless in a lot of ways, and it was fascinating. And I started taking pictures of some of the patients at work. And I started seeing how the patients came alive, like even when they weren't at their best, like literally some people on their deathbeds.
You were taking pictures
And
of
I'm
them.
taking, no, but it was with their consent.
Right, no, yeah.
Yeah,
But they were
everything-
like receptive
They
to
were
this.
all receptive to this energy of the camera. And at the time, I couldn't really articulate it because I didn't have just the knowledge in the language, and I didn't know the power of the camera. And then in that same year, 1995, I had a conversation with God because I saw like I just was burnt out with healthcare, and I was like, I don't want to do this. And I just said, God, you know why you put me here. I know it's something artistic you want me to do. Please send a message and a messenger, and I'm going to follow. And took 2 years. And in 1997, I took a course, signed up for a course. In 1997, I went to Jamaica on vacation, read up about an introductory to black and white photography course at ICP.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounded kind of interesting. I said, you know what, I'm going to save up my coins and I'm going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And signed up on the first day of class, showed up, and instructor wanted everybody to bring some of their work.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a little 4x6 photo album that I got from a little. They had the little 1 hour photo development places.
1 hour spot. I used to have those. I know the spot you're talking about.
Exactly. They had one at Nostrand Avenue.
Right.
It was Nostrand in Fulton. It was a 30-minute photo lab, and they gave me a little free album. And that was what I had. And I brought in some of my photographs. And I'm the only black guy in the class of about 12 to 15. And he, when I got to class, I showed up late because I took the wrong train. And the instructor looked at my work. And he's looking at my work in the album. He's like, you took all these pictures? And I was like, yeah. And he's flipping through the pages. He like, you took all of these pictures? And I was like, yeah. And he was 80-something-year-old white guy, Vietnam veteran. And he closed the album. And he turned to me. He looked me straight in my eye. He said, you will be a great photographer. And you'll be ashamed if you don't pursue this seriously. That was it.
That was the message. That was the messenger.
Message and the messenger. Never looked back. Couldn't afford to take any more classes. And that day, I committed myself to photography and haven't looked back. And from that time, you know what? And then 1999, I got laid off from Beth Israel. And I said, I'm not going to take another job in healthcare. It's going to be, you know what, a little rough, but I'm committing all the way. And from that time, that was August 1999.
So for the last 25 years, you've been a photographer full time. Tell me about some of the highlights of that career. Tell me some of the places that your camera has taken you.
Oh, man. Many. I think one of the first highlights, big moments, I would say, is when I received the Gordon Parks Photography Award.
Wow. That's major.
Yeah. I received the Gordon Parks Photography Award in 2004, 2003, and 2004.
So 4 or 5 years after you got laid off, you were receiving rewards for your work.
Listen, bro, what can I say? God.
What were you taking pictures of at that time?
I was really getting into journalism. And I want to thank Rewind, two brothers who really took me under their wing. Brother by the name of Jerry Jack, God bless him, no longer with us, with the ancestors. He, you know what, I was introduced to him through this artist, brother who I can't remember the name of right now. But Jerry Jack was, a freelance photographer, and he took me on my first photo assignment for Black Enterprise. So it was my first time assisting a professional photographer and seeing how things worked. So he pulled out lights like this with the barn doors, everything set up. And you know what? Just told me, don't break shit. And you know what? And just told me just to pay attention. And I learned a lot. That was the first time I really saw a professional photo shoot. And there was another brother by the name of Tar. Tar did a lot of editorial work. Big ups to him. Photographed Midnight Marauders, album cover for Tribal Quest. He did Faith's first album, Bad Boy, and
Midnight
several other,
Marauders. That was with the
all
silhouette.
the different faces.
Oh, that's all the different
all
faces.
the different faces.
That's funny because we're doing the same thing here. Like Jason is doing the same thing for us
Here
here.
you go. So it was Boy Tar,
Uh-huh.
and meeting him, he was seeing, because now this is like 1999. You know what? 2000. Really, like, now my political, social views are coming out in my work, and I'm starting to really see the power of photography. Like, I'm learning. Like, I started just asking a lot of questions. Like, I started noticing, okay, how come I don't see really any dark skinned sisters in advertisements? And then I noticed, okay, how come I don't see no full figure women in none? And then I remember, like, the Newport ads. I'm like, why are these black people smiling, holding this deaf?
Holding cigarettes, right?
And then, like, even with news, like, I started noticing, like, how a photograph is the biggest picture on any magazine, or the biggest, I would say, or takes up the most space on any kind of magazine or newspaper. And I started then seeing how photographs were used to really market any business, but also to storytelling. And then I started to notice who was telling the stories. And this is when I started to see, like, wait a minute, how come all these stories on Bed-Stuy, none of these people are black? And then in looking at how our history was being told, and I started to then connect the dots really on the power of visual storytelling and how our stories, our image, and I started realizing who has controlled our image.
Right.
And really also, too, not just controlled our image, has weaponized, you know what, the camera against us as a tool of mass deception, manipulation, and destruction. And now I start digging deeper, and now I'm always been into Black history, and now I'm starting to connect dots on how, okay, the first images of us that the world really saw were of slaves. And then this whole dehumanizing, you know what, experience. But the next image that the world should have seen of us is when every single Black man that signed up to fight for their freedom in the Civil War put on that uniform. Every single Black man got his portrait taken because they knew they weren't going to be coming home. And that was going to be the last image they wanted for their family. And they stood proudly, and the world never saw that image. And media did not want, and publishing in the news did not want the world to see this image,
to see those images
of a positive image of a Black man in a uniform
serving
with
his
a gun,
country.
serving the country, even that country that is enslaving him,
Right.
and fighting for his freedom, and really how powerful and liberating that was. And then I started seeing how who controls really our images. And then again how the camera was used to intimidate us. The circulation of the images of us being lynched. This was to strike fear in us, to make us be afraid of white people, and to
It's
just
also to dehumanize us to white people, because
absolutely, but the
right,
psychological warfare,
yeah,
right? Also, too, that
right,
you also and how this impacts men, women, and children as men. Okay, you can't, you aren't safe. You can't even protect yourself nor your family.
hmm
This is what we will do to you.
hmm
But also during this time, all the HBCUs, all of the excellence that was happening at HBCUs, and no one was knowing about it. And there was only one place you could find those images: black newspapers.
hmm
That was the underground railroad of excellence in history, in our souls, in our greatness. And that was only available in certain places, maybe certain churches, certain black communities,
certain
certain
barbershops, yeah,
barbershops,
just
hair
right.
salons, black, exactly. So with this, my identity in loving myself, loving my people, and then I am learning also too, studying like photo albums, like CDs and like in record albums. Like I'm looking at the pictures and I'm seeing like, okay, I'm seeing history, I'm learning art, and I'm seeing like, wait a minute, I can take photographs that could educate the world.
hmm
I can make black history. I can do art. I can do fashion. As I get older, the work becomes more valuable. I can work for myself. I can make books. This is it.
hmm
And enrich my people. I
Right,
can change the way I can make some people, I can bring out the best in some folks.
right.
Um,
That's real shit. And I want to judge you, but I want to add on to that, because I think that what you're saying is what a phenomenal photographer would say to themselves. Like, it's not just about taking pictures.
nah,
You went all the way back to slavery images and how important those images were, and then
big
lynching
time.
images and how important those images were. The psychology behind the image.
Absolutely.
So you're telling me, yo, I looked at record labels and I was looking at the images and this was coming through to me. And as someone who's a consumer of photos, because I'm not a photographer, I don't work professionally to create them.
Right.
I'm just looking at the image and I'm not even really understanding
The science
the
behind
science behind
right,
it.
right.
Right?
Exactly. So, and this
But
is
it's hitting
it's
me.
hit is
It's
it,
hitting me.
and this is where I was saying is how, and then it's all around us.
Right.
You go to the grocery store. What do you see? Pictures of food.
Right.
It looks better than what it actually is.
Right. Right.
Right?
Right.
But
The orange
everything.
got like drops on it, water. It's like
Listen.
it's sweating.
Exactly.
Right. The
They make it
spaghetti
look
looks
salivating.
great.
And
Right.
this is pre-Photoshop.
Right.
Right? So looking at all of this and then even looking at again how we're looking at the advertising world
hmm
and how brothers like myself and you, we weren't representing no fashion companies.
hmm
It wasn't until, you know what, the birth of like Carl Kanai and more so hip hop, you know, with
Hip hop
urban,
closet.
exact hip hop
Right.
closet,
Right.
you know what, where we saw images of, I would say, of masculine strong, you know, of masculine black men, um, really, I think out there in the fashion world, and like Tyson Beckford is like, I mean, legendary because
Right.
he's like one of the first and to really be representing a major fashion line.
hmm
You know what? And even change the way I think the world saw us.
Right.
Um,
I think we played a big role in that, here at Hip Hop Closet, because Hip Hop Closet started out in '98, right? So, so by '98, early '99, we're taking photos of clothing. And one thing that we used to do was, like, when Kyle and Malik would call me for a photo shoot, I would come with my regular clothes on. And it would be like, well, wear this Pele jacket. So I would
Right.
put the Pele on, but everything underneath it was what I was wearing that day.
Right.
So it really wasn't like this made up, contrived image. It was Marlon in a Pele Pele jacket.
That's right.
Right. And
right.
so it really began to take hold. I remember we was at Crossings, we was out in Poconos one time, and somebody saw me and was like, "Yo, you be on that shit. I saw you rocking a Pele Pele jacket."
Right.
Like, so that made me realize the images are hitting.
Right.
Right? And we ain't really trying. I don't have makeup. I don't have hair.
Exactly.
Like, we're not doing that.
Right. It's
Is
just
what I'm
real
saying.
rap.
It's just
real rap.
Kaisha's like, yo, meet us at John's.
Right.
I go to the spot in my regular Aniche shit.
Right.
They give me a jacket. I put it on, and we put it up.
Right. And we just being ourselves.
But that's what hip hop was.
Absolutely.
At the time.
Right.
That's what black masculinity was at the time. Right. So I feel like we ain't never gonna get all the credit we deserve, but I feel like from a digital standpoint, when the internet first was rocking, we were really one of those first companies that were giving real images of black men in fashion and lifestyle.
Right.
Without any.
And as you said that, bro, I just gotta.
That's dope. That shit is dope. You see that kind? That shit is dope.
So here
that
it is.
Shit is dope.
Again, positive images and classic images. So tying it all in, I started to see really the power was behind the camera and how it was so important that I think the community that I saw and the community I knew existed, the world would never find out about it because brothers who thought like me were not getting access to positions of power to tell these kind of stories and to show the world a side of blackness and the African diaspora, the love, the soul, the culture, the work ethic, the positivity. And that's when I just dedicated myself to really showing our humanity, our excellence, and in our hope, our souls. And from there, circling back, 2004, coming back to original question, I win this award. I get invited to Kamunge. Kamunge, everybody, is a collective of black photographers founded in 1963 in Harlem by a group of black men. Roy De Carava, who is an icon and a giant in black photography, in the photography world. He created the first photography book to show black people in a dignified manner called The Sweet Flypaper of Life. Made it in 1952 and 1953. Langston Hughes wrote the text. He was the first black person to win a Guggenheim Fellowship and made that book. It is the Bible for photography.
The Sweet Flypaper of Life.
The Sweet Flypaper of Life by Roy De Carava and Langston Hughes. It got reissued, I think, about 2 or 3 years ago, like in a 5x7 form. But for all the people who are really art lovers, the second edition is like an 8x10 book. I think it was made by Howard University Press. I would recommend that because the image is a little bit bigger. But this is, I mean, a piece of it. It's a treasure. It's a treasure. So they welcomed me in 2004, and a gentleman by the name of Adger Cowens. He is another legendary photographer. He from Ohio, pretty much Gordon Parks. I would say protege. He was Gordon Parks' protege, and became like his best friend. He set up a meeting for me to meet Gordon Parks after I won the award, and Mr. Parks welcomed me to his home. I got to meet him, looked at my work. We were in a book together, gave me a portfolio review. And at the time, I was working at the Associated Press. He even wrote me a letter of recommendation for a
Gordon
job.
Parks wrote you a letter.
Letter of recommendation for a job, and I did not get the job.
Oh shit! They didn't show love to my man Gordon.
Yo, and that's when I realized this industry, they don't respect us.
They don't.
And
Yeah.
people who think like we do.
Right.
You know what? So I'm not making pictures for business.
Mhm.
And also too, there ain't enough money in the world you can pay me. This images I will never take.
Mhm.
I don't give a fuck.
Like what? Tell me an image that you won't take, no matter what the money is.
I will never take an image of a child in Africa suffering, starving. You know what?
Understood.
I mean, promoting, you know what?
Right.
Just this
Famine
poverty
and pestilence,
this
right.
stereotypical and this suffering.
You know what? When you said that, the image came to me with the child, the African child with his belly and the vulture sitting in the foreground.
In
You remember
Ethiopia,
that?
indeed,
Yes.
indeed, during the famine.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And here it is. That is an image people to this day cannot
Yes.
get out of their head
Yes.
about
Yes.
Ethiopia.
Yes. Mhm.
And I'm going to circle back to that point. So that's an image I will not take. I also refuse to ever take an image of a black man with a gun.
Mhm.
And
Good.
also, but it was during George Floyd
Mhm.
rebellions. I was in Minneapolis, and I did take an image of some brothers. But these brothers were embodying the Black Panthers to protect their community because it's North Side, Minneapolis. Want to give a shout out to Nina Robinson, sister, and Layla B. We went out there together. Nina was a photographer, black woman lived out there, welcomed me into her home. You know what, me and friend Layla, another black photographer, great black woman photographer. We went out there to document what was happening during the George Floyd, rebellion. And while we were there, what we came to find out was these white supremacists were burning down and targeting black neighborhoods and setting their businesses on fire. And the NAACP organized, they had a call to action and wanted some volunteers. And there was a group of black men that all volunteered to come, armed and ready to protect the community from any threat.
And you took their pictures.
I got their photograph, and that was the first image which I ever shared publicly and took of a black man with a gun. But when you see the photograph, these men are protectors, as opposed to a threat, as opposed to an image of violence. And with that, again, speaks to, the person behind the camera. Like I can look at anyone's photographs and I can tell you about their personality just looking at their images.
You can tell about the photographer's
Absolutely. You can learn about who the person is behind the camera through their work. Like anybody who looks at my work, they be like, this guy's black as fuck. He love black people. This guy is kind of militant. This man also too, he is dedicated. I think, again, people look at my work, they will also see how it's really, I'm doing this as a community servant to really introduce my community to the world. Because that was the other thing which I noticed about a lot of our history. The amount of pictures taken of us, and we're not even identified, man. And that disturbs me because it makes me think back again historically, how when we were even born and how we weren't even given the dignity of a birth certificate. So when I photograph anybody, you know what, I would say 95% of the time, I always try to get their name, their information. Some people don't want to give. And then sometimes it's just a moment I have to capture because it's in the moment. And with that, but I always look to humanize. And even when I've captured some people not at their best, like I got a picture of one of my boys in prison.
Mhm.
I went to go see him, on Rikers, and that even was a blessing
Mhm.
because anybody who is going to visit someone on Rikers Island, you can't bring nothing.
Nothing. Right.
Nothing.
Right.
But
I'm
when
about
I
to
was
ask you how
going,
you got the camera in there.
I told the corrections officer, I said, listen, I'm a photographer. My boy's locked up, and I know your rules. And I said, but I would like to take a picture of him, and I want him to see what he looks like behind bars so he never is back in this place again.
Mhm.
And he said, that's positive. He said, I can't guarantee it. He said, but you know what? You got to let me hold my camera. I'm going to talk to my supervisor, and we're going to see what happens. It's like, no problem. Go through the whole process. Captain says, you can take one picture.
Wow. One picture.
I took a couple more.
Yeah, right. I'm letting that shit go.
Yo.
I'm gonna let the shutter go.
I'm here, and I was just like,
I'm gonna let the
something?
shutter go, but
And
okay.
my boy was unjustly,
Mhm.
locked up. But that picture,
Mhm.
is something that I would never, I won't get that, I can't get that image out of my head of seeing him.
Mhm.
But I also, too, wanted to make sure he
never gets that image
Indeed.
out of his head.
Indeed.
Right.
And that, he will never end up back in this place again.
Right.
So, circling back to when you brought up about the image of the child and the vulture.
Africa, right, and the vulture.
Another highlight of my career is going to Ethiopia. In 2014, I was invited by the Addis Photo Fest to show my work on Bed-Stuy. And here it was. I went out there, had an exhibit, showed my work, and then while I was there, I met a woman who was the director of the United Nations Educational Science Cultural Organization. And I told her that I had this mission that I really wanted to try to bring, the African diaspora together and in educating Africans about the greatness of African Americans and us working together to even form like this HBCU. And we change the image of our people through photojournalism and being the authors of our own stories. And there have been magazines, National Geographic, calling you out, that have put out images of the continent that in our people that did not represent them in the best way.
Of course.
And I'm particularly, calling them out because they never hired black photographers. And all the photographers that they always have had, and they have always had a staff that is all lily white. And just as of recently, in the past, I would say 5 years, did they really start bringing on some black and brown people. And I want to give, just give blessings to some of my friends who gotten work from them. Protege of mine, brother by the name of Elias Williams. Another brother, good friend, Wayne Lawrence. And another brother by the name of Freddie Roy. They got work from them. But that's just recently. Very recent. But when you go back historically, you would have, these, and I remember they put out this magazine. It was called the Africa Issue. All white photographers.
All white photographers on the Africa issue.
All white photographers. I think there was maybe one. That might have been Eli Reed, but that doesn't even count. Now, I'll never forget. There was a panel discussion at NYU. This is maybe 2005. I can't remember the exact year. And I remember this editor-in-chief of the magazine, he came up in there really feeling himself, thinking that he was about to get celebrated. destroyed.
They destroyed them. Hell yes, they should have.
Absolutely.
As they should have.
And coming back to this, as you was speaking about that image of Ethiopia, and when I went there, and this woman, her name, Sasha Rubel, she was the woman who was the director of UNESCO at Ethiopia. I told her about really this vision I had, and I showed her my work on Bed-Stuy. And when she saw it, she was blown away. And she said, "Would you like to do a workshop?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, are you kidding me?" And she said, we brainstormed, and she said, "Okay, extend your visa, and let's set up a workshop next month." And I ended up doing 3 workshops in Ethiopia, 1 in South Sudan, and the final workshop I did was in October of 2015, November 2015, and this is definitely one of the proudest moments of my life, of my career. And it was I pretty much got it was a 3-tier workshop: photojournalism, filmmaking, and feature writing. And I organized some friends, filmmakers, writers, and some photographers, all from here, to go to Ethiopia for 1 month. And we did a whole media workshop and trained over 250 Africans to learn how to construct stories, to tell how to construct good photographs, photo essay development to tell a story, as well as educating them on the business side. I also had a photo editor from the New York Times come over and speak to about what is, how to present a good story, and even, what to get paid, and the language. And from that workshop, some of our students have gone, they're represented by galleries, they've shot work for CNN, won grants from Instagram, from Getty Images. They're telling the stories of their people, of their country. And most of all, bro, it's the women. And let me tell you, journalism is the enemy in a lot of countries, particularly outside, of America and Europe. Journalists are the gatekeepers of truth. And the women, particularly, are pushing against traditions culturally that don't want to see them in some positions of power. And these black women who signed up, for the workshop, and let me tell you, people quit their jobs. People walked miles to participate in these workshops. And they are now telling the stories of the continent, man. Yo.
That's big. That's big real quick. Yeah, right. Like, that shit is big. I wanted to go out to the workshop real quick because we ain't got much time. The first thing I want you to do is, for any budding photographer,
Right.
like Kaisha or Jason, right? They're getting their legs strong in photography. What advice do you give them with regards to the science and the spirituality of photography?
Great question. First thing that comes to mind is really knowing this responsibility you have with the camera and with somebody else's image.
That's deep in and of itself. That's deep right there. Right.
The first thing you need to be cognizant of is, why do you want to take pictures?
Mhm.
And knowing that in this time right now, right, how a photograph can be seen by, you can't even quantify, you can't even track how many thousands, even millions of people may see a picture,
Right. Or where your image may go.
where it may end up. And really think of what really is your intention. And for whoever you may photograph, are they going to be happy with the image you take of them?
Mhm.
As well as, two, I would also speak on just knowing that this art form, it has art form, this form of storytelling,
Mhm.
of history, it, you know what, it's fun for a lot of us, but again, knowing the responsibility
Mhm.
and move with honor, move with honor, move with respect. I would also say a big thing I want to say to emerging photographers is you really need to study some history.
Mhm.
You need to look at who has come before you and what people have done with so much less.
Then you have,
Because
right.
knowing, what do you really know, what is a good image to you?
Mhm.
What is a good photograph? And also, too, can you make a photograph without anything automatically done for you?
Mm. Mm.
Have you tried working with film? If you have a digital camera, try making pictures covering up the back of that LCD screen. Let me see how you do. Try taking just 24 pictures like would be on a roll of film.
Like a roll.
Exactly.
110/24. That's back in
There
the
you go.
day. You don't remember
So
that.
the point here is of some discipline.
Mhm.
Also, too, I think with today's, I think, image makers,
Mhm.
you have a lot of people who do this,
Mhm.
and you got very few people who take pictures.
From that, right.
So when you can operate and when you walk good, and when people can really see who you are, like when I look at some of my work, sometimes, I'm blown away. And I think about some people I've met for the very first time, like how my camera has just been a conversation
Mhm.
starter. And it's been really like a microphone to introduce people to the world.
Right.
And I just really look to elevate people with, and elevate people with a positive image of themselves that the world can learn who they are. And also, too, we can see our own greatness because I think in just trying to survive,
Mhm.
we are hard on ourselves
Mhm.
and we don't take enough time to really even, you know what, I think, smell the roses in the garden.
Right. Give ourselves flowers.
Get indeed.
Right.
So
Give ourselves flowers.
um, that right there, I think, is the offering I would give.
That's awesome.
So you know what, too, so studying some of the greats.
Mhm.
So Anthony Barboza, I said Roy De Carava, Ming Smith. There are some contemporary greats, and there's all different types of photography.
Mhm.
There's Baron Claiborne, there's Joseph Rodriguez. I can go on and on. Contemporaries, Adama Delphine, Fawundu, sister, who has an exhibit right now going on in Prospect Park at
Mhm.
Lefford's house.
Mhm.
And there are many different dimensions um, as well. So there is, the I do more documentarian work, um, but there is the like mixed media. There is some conceptual work as well, and there is so many different, paths you can go down. But really think about what you are going to say in one photograph without words. Because let me tell you this, a good picture speaks for itself. You don't have to write a dissertation.
Mhm.
A good picture, it it crosses generations, it crosses languages. I've shown my work in China, I've shown my work in Australia, I've shown my work um, in Cambodia, France, you know what, going to the continent, Ethiopia, Mali, and here it is, and even domestically.
Mhm.
But people can connect with it because, you know, the pictures are conversations, interaction. It's like this.
Mhm.
I'm not across the street with a zoom lens,
Mhm.
with doing some like voyeur
Mhm.
type crap.
Mhm.
No, I'm over here, in your face, and I want to get to know you, and I want to represent you well,
Mhm.
and I want to make this camera, this tool, really just this amplifier for who we are,
Mhm.
and let the world really see our greatness.
Last thing before we go, you and I doing something this weekend.
That's right.
I want you to tell the people so that they can come out.
All right. So everybody, this Sunday at Restoration Plaza, 12 p.m. On the main landing, right on Fulton Street,
Mhm.
between Moshood and Applebee's.
Mhm.
Um, good brother over here, Marlon Rice, is giving me the space and the floor for me to have a Father's Day celebration with family portraits. And I am also really excited that I've have a group of some great people who have come on board to volunteer to create like an outdoor spa day. We got some barbers from the community, brother by the name of Khalil, another brother by the name of Hameen.
I was just with Khalil. Like literally, I came
who
here after being
they're
with
gonna
him.
be, cleaning brothers up. So hey,
Mhm.
brothers, if you want to get a cut, you want to get a lineup, you can come true. Also, some massage therapists, sister by the name of Fumilayo. Also to Khadijah Tudor of the Life Wellness Center.
Shout out to
They're going to
Khadijah.
be, they're going to be coming on board, offering some
Mhm.
massages, and
Mhm.
another sister who's a manicurist.
Mhm.
So she's going to be, hey, for my blue collar brothers who do some really hard, gritty work with your hands, you can come get a cleanup, you know what, and get, your nails, just buffed and cleaned up. So with that, just want to celebrate, the men in our community who are doing good, who I think don't get enough dap, and there isn't necessarily anything done like this in the community just to show love for them. So
Mhm.
it's part of my giving back, me wanting to also to document our families, and me just with spreading some of the love that has been given to me and giving it right back to the community. So 12 to 7, restoration. It's free. I don't know if I said
Mhm.
that. It's
Mhm.
all free, everybody. So I'm gonna be doing some portraits. I'm gonna set up a studio. I'm gonna make some digital portraits, and everybody who comes through, we'll get their information, and I'll be able to send them a copy of the photograph.
I'm absolutely coming out there with my son.
Bless.
Yeah, this was very informative. Kyle, what we working with over there?
There weren't any questions. Stacey Gray just gave some hearts just now.
Mhm. Shout out to
And I've
Stacey.
been bouncing back and forth, so I lost some of the other things. But there was somebody else in here that wanted to say hi.
Yeah, I think what you
Gina
touched on.
does it again?
Gina does it. What does Gina do?
Yeah, I don't know Gina.
He said he disowned Gina. I don't know Gina at all. I don't know what she
I
do.
don't think I know Gina.
I don't know what she do. I think, what you said is very apropos for what I've been dealing with the last couple of days. Like I said, we threw this block party. The block party was amazing, but I didn't take pictures, right? And so then I kind of sat and waited to see what the content was. And what I found was that the army of photographers that were there captured this thing in a space where it just beautified what my idea of it was.
Right.
Like when you put something together, you have an idea of what it's gonna be, right?
Right.
And I'll be honest, and I told somebody this, the block party was from 12 to 7. The idea of what I wanted it to be probably was like 2 hours in length.
Right.
Where I sat there
Right.
and I looked at it and I was like, this is exactly what it is that I wanted.
Right.
Right? And within that 2-hour time frame, the photographer that was there took pictures, took video, took content, and created imagery that will last all summer at the very least.
Oh, bro, not even all summer. Forever.
Forever.
It's timeless.
Right.
You
Right.
know what?
And I'm just so grateful. Like I'm very grateful that I have people in my camp that are good with translating images in that way.
Right. Right.
Because nothing I could have did on my phone would have mattered. It don't even look good. I tried to do a reel after doing your reel. I said, I'm not even doing that shit. Like none of these reels. I don't have one picture
Right.
that looks like that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I'm very grateful to your craft and for you and for Jason and for Urilla and for E-Dubs and Mellow Corp and Nika Willis, all these cats that I meet and I come across and they shoot me.
Right.
What you said about you never know where that picture's gonna go is real talk. I was buying a suit in a store one time and the motherfucker had a catalog. I'm in the catalog for shooting something with Hip Hop Closet. And they all snickering at the back because they all know who I am. I don't know what.
Right.
I'm like, what? They like, yeah, you're in our catalog for the, you know what I'm saying? So you never know where these pictures are gonna go.
Right.
I'm very, it was an honor to meet you. It's gonna be an honor to work with you on Sunday. I'm bringing my son out. We doing our portraits. And I'm looking forward to continuing to help curate culture. But you can't do it without the images. You can't do it without the photographers.
You know what, bro? And it's, as you said that, just to add, we need each other.
Yeah.
The other thing is, and really valuing each other.
Yeah.
So valuing, okay, I mean, the image, valuing the person who also too is this curator who has a vision, who can see something that you don't even see of yourself.
I don't even see the shit.
And you know what, you miss it.
Right.
And then, you know what, so it's placing, you know what, so hey, you got your team over here behind the lenses, and here it is, you making this magic happen, we being able to transmit. Like, I mean, you think about what you're doing right now.
Right.
You were doing some high fidelity work, and you got damn phones.
Right.
When, you know what, 10 years ago, this would take a set that maybe you couldn't even afford.
You couldn't even afford to do it. Right.
You know what, you would need a whole crew.
Right.
Right? So what the skill set is, I think, has been devalued.
Mm-hmm.
And with AI photography, with affirmative action, you know what, being dismantled, there is also too, I think, an attack on the people like myself, where work is drying up, where, you know what, you have some technology.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that shit.
You know
absolutely.
What? And so,
AI is an attack on all that shit.
All of it. So the other, you know what, very important part of this is, you know what, valuing, you know what, the image makers and the curators of our culture. The, you know what, the authors of our story, right? So, hey, you know what, paying them. You know what, doing right by them. You want to use their image, give them a photo
Give
credit.
them a photo
Yo,
credit.
move with integrity.
Right.
Move with integrity. You know what? Because the other thing is, it could serve you very well. Because, and that goes for also too, the people behind the camera, right? You take a photograph of someone, like here it is. A good example could be the brother whose name I didn't mention was, you know what, Jamel Shabazz. You know what, Jamel, you know what, homie, you know what, known him 20 plus years. Another good friend, Terrence Jennings. You know what, so another great photographer. But Jamel, thinking about all the people he's photographed with his books,
Did he ever imagine that the work he did in the 80s in documenting hip hop culture in Brooklyn that would be on billboards?
Right.
You know what? 20, 30 years later, that his book on Brooklyn in the 80s has been reprinted 10 times. This is unprecedented. And most of all, how it's changed the way even people see our community. When we think about this gentrification that's going on, this is all because hip hop. Hip hop, you know what, changed the way these white folks saw our community. They were listening to our music and the stuff that their parents told them don't do. They're like, nah, you know what, yo, I'm feeling this.
Right.
You know, and I'm learning
Right.
some things about this community and I'm learning about some oppression in here. I'm learning about some struggle. I'm learning about some injustice.
And it feels good to me.
And you know what?
Right.
It sounds good.
It sounds
These
good
are
to me.
poets.
Right.
These people are more important than what you think they are, and they aren't as dangerous as you think they are. You just don't understand them. And it's through hip hop that I think a lot of people outside of our community have got to learn us. And you know what? And with that, that also too is why gentrification accelerated in the way that it has. You know what? But again, the images.
We're gonna have to have you back, bro, because there's so much that we hadn't spoken about. What's up, y'all? Y'all want to do sneaker wars? What we doing? Yeah, true.
Yeah, I'm submitting myself to the award.
All right, so this is what we do. We have something called Sneaker Wars.
Okay.
Each one of us have on sneakers, and you are the judge. You get to choose between the three of us who came correct today. So I got on the pink ones.
Right.
Kai got on the Hirachis, or what's those?
Yeah, Hirachis.
And Jay got on the Uptowns. He got on the Pride Uptown. See, he always, this motherfucker always looking for some extra shit. He got on the Pride fucking Uptowns. So who wins?
Wait a minute.
So comfortable.
Wait a minute.
Who
We just
wins?
going by visuals.
Right, right. She trying to sell. They always do this to me, Russ. They always try to sell their shit off, and I always win.
I'm sorry, my man. The MVP. It's all good. It's all good. They love me on IG.
Until next week, we're back. Okay.
You see
We'll
what I'm
see
saying?
you next Tuesday.
You gotta take care of the people behind
Right.
the
Take
camera.
care of the.
Love.
Peace,
Appreciate
peace.
y'all.
That